Hey folks, I'd like to talk to you today about removing augment stats from the end of game and match history, and therefore from stat sites. The last time we tried to remove the augment stats in Runeterra Reforged, we saw immediate positives towards TFT game health. Lobbies had a wider range of augments taken, unique compositions crafted, and innovative strategies appeared more frequently. However, due to the way we implemented the change, people could scrape match history, creating an unfair advantage. You can read about the last time we talked about it on Reddit. Since then, we've been monitoring the impact and are still unhappy with what stat sites do to how players interact with TFT. Rather than experiment and explore the large amount of content, players rush to conclusions based on the data. In addition, we've seen on the competitive side that not every region has equal access to stats, which creates another competitive integrity issue. We saw at the Vegas Open that having everyone play without access to those led to a fantastic event with unique plays. And remember Milala's learning to spell victory back when the augment was not high priority? Since then, we've kept all our other mechanics mostly out of our match history and APIs. We kept portals off of there explicitly to ensure we didn't end up with a world where stats sites were explaining exactly what the best champs and augments were on each portal, each encounter, etc. Anomaly buffs into the arcane are similarly not on match history for this very reason. In the spirit of game health and competitive fairness, we will take another stab at this and remove augments from match history, starting with the launch of Into the Arcane. Removing them from match history ensures that there is no way to scrape everything to create stats and should lead to a more dynamic discussion around the content of the set. We know players won't be happy with this change, and we get that, but that does not change that this is the fairest thing to do for our future competitions. Past that, this change will also lead to a better game health and enjoyment. Having tried this once before, we're pretty confident in our updated approach to this decision. All that being said, we will monitor and change if it turns out we were wrong. Have fun, enjoy the launch of Into the Arcane, and take it easy, smiley face. Okay, so this is actually really interesting. A lot of people are talking about it. I'll try to summarize this. Removing stats means that you can no longer look up what the best play is for your given spot easily. You will now have to think for yourself, and I'll try my best to summarize both sides because I read up on this a lot earlier because I just like enjoy heated discussion and seeing what people have to say. So I read up on a lot of the comments on Reddit. There's like multiple large threads about it. The general consensus of players that do like it, well, let's start with the don't like it. The general consensus of players that don't like it is that they say it seems like a lazy band-aid fix. They say they're covering up the bad augment balance, right? They're not confident that they're going to be able to balance the augments, so they're hiding it from us so that they can't be called out for it. A lot of people were saying that when I thought that was kind of fucked. That's definitely not why they're doing it. Anyway, and then a lot of people were saying like, oh, well now casual players like are fucked because casual players can't look up stats and they won't be able to like stay on the same competitive level as people who know live streams all day and like stay in study groups and have access to all like the latest tech information. That's generally like the main complaints of people who don't like it. They're saying it's too hard to be relevant in the game now unless you spend 8 hours a day playing it. On the other side of things, the reason why people do like this change is it makes it so that the game feels less like sheepy, where it's like, oh, like this comp is performing the best, so I'm going to force it. It makes it less like you just go to a tier list and force the S tier builds and then just like look up the BIS every single time. When you saw me play ranked, I would look up the stats. I don't like doing it, but I feel like I have to. Because if I'm not looking up stats, I will fall behind people who do look up stats. It's not really about a competitive fairness thing, in my opinion. It's more about like the skills that are tested are different. With stats, it's more about like how can you interpret the data and use it to your advantage better than everybody else. Without stats, it's more like can you make the right overall decisions at all? And they test two very different skills. Also, TFT always suffers from this issue. I'm surprised people did not really mention this. This was, in my opinion, the biggest reason to like this change. A lot of people on Reddit did not mention this at all. TFT gets solved too quickly because the stats and the tools available make it too easy to figure out through like using millions of games of data what the best play is. Right? It's too easy to solve the game. The game gets solved too fast and then the game becomes boring. This is like an artificial way. I don't know if I'd call it artificial, but it slows down the progress of the game of like the climbing of skill so that during the 4 months of a set, players aren't reaching the ceiling so fast. Once the ceiling has been reached, the game becomes very boring. I liked set 12 until the ceiling was reached, and then I got really bored of it instantly. Set 11 and set 12, or set 11 and set 10, they eventually had their ceilings reached, and then the game became really boring. Like, set 10 was an awesome set. I loved it. But the moment I felt like everyone at the top level knew what was good, and everybody was kind of on the same page of what was good and what was bad, the game became very boring. It felt more like just don't make a mistake and make sure you hit, rather than like have cool ideas and see how they compare against other people's cool ideas. Without stats, there will be more situations where players can be like, Setsuko believes this is really strong, and Dishshow believes this is really strong, and they're both rank 1 and rank 2. It'll be exciting to see which idea comes out on top. Different top-level players will have different ideas of what's good, instead of just like being able to all uniformly agree that one XYZ strategy is the best. If you looked at the end of set 12, it was very easy for people to just be like, this is the number 1 comp, this is the number 2 comp, this is the number 3 comp, this is the number 4 comp, and then people just had like a priority list of what they were trying to play based on what they hit. You still have to make decisions, like, oh, I hit part of the best comp in the game, but I hit a lot of the 10th best comp in the game. Which one should I play? That's still a decision that you have to make, but it's like not a fun one, in my opinion. It's way more interesting if like the power level of comps is really up in the air and it's up to you to make an educated decision. So, yeah, I think I summarized what both sides are saying. And in case you couldn't tell already, I'm personally a huge fan of this change. Mostly because it lowers the amount of, or it increased the amount of time for players to solve TFT. TFT is just a really boring game when it gets solved. TFT is a wonderful game that takes 4 months and millions and millions and millions of dollars to make each set. And the fact that like we have these tools that make the set redundant and not fun to play within 2 months, it's so sad. I want to play and enjoy the set longer. I want to have my fun believing in an idea and then like trying to make it work, rather than having an idea, checking the stats and be like, oh yeah, it's garbage. Don't play it. It's terrible. I'd like to like try my best to find a unique build, rather than just like use stat sites to aggregate the best data over the course of millions of games. It's a fantasy that I look forward to, and I want to like find my own build that like nobody else likes and like try to master it, make it less easy to be copied. With stat sites, it's very easy to see what works and then just copy it, leading the game to be like, in my opinion, very stale. League of Legends has like champion expression and skill expression in like how you move and how you make decisions on the fly. TFT is a lot more just like you only make the decisions, right? If you were the world's best like Gangplank player, you could express that, and players could see you, they could lose to you, and they wouldn't be able to recreate it themselves. But if you were the world's best academy reroller, people can just see what you do, look up your match history, and then copy it almost exactly. And they'll be able to replicate it like with like 90% efficacy. Anyway, I talked to Asa about this change. I was curious what he had to say, because I was personally a huge fan. If you ever look on Reddit, I'm not going to show you guys all the threads. Just know that there was a lot. There was a lot of threads and a lot of discussion, like this one. Pulling back augment stats hurts TFT integrity, hurts competitive TFT integrity. And if you look at what the comments are saying, there's a lot of people that are really against this change. And in my opinion, they're like really hateful comments. There's a lot of comments that basically say like, they're doing this to hide their incompetency. They know they can't balance the augments right, so they're hiding it so that we can't call them out for it. Like we rightfully deserve to do so. There's a lot of comments that are like that. That's definitely not the reason. I think people who say that are really stupid. There's no way that the Riot design team is like, oh shit, like people called us out last time this augment was really bad. And like, I didn't like that feeling. Why don't we just hide the stats so they can't do that? Like, there's no way they're doing that. 0% chance. They're definitely doing it because they generally believe it leads to the game being more fun, which I generally agree with. I talked to Asa. He massively agrees as well. We talked about it for a while, and we came to the conclusion that the people who don't like it, it's not the top 1%. It's not the casual 90%. It's the people in the middle. The casual players love this change. The top 1% players love it as well because the game doesn't get solved so fast. So you can actually like you can actually express a skill gap between other players. Top players love it. Casual players love it. The ones that don't love it are the ones who actively use stats to their advantage to inflate their rank. The ones that are like in the middle. And when I say in the middle, I don't mean like in the middle of the ranking ladder, like platinum. I mean in the middle as in you are better than a casual, but you are worse than a pro. So I'm talking like diamond to grandmaster is generally the range of people that I think don't like this change.